Blood dripped on the floor as Meng Chao forced himself to stand up and walk, which made his father and Bai Jiaozhao worry, and he was also aware that his body was still too weak, his internal injuries were not completely healed yet, and he didn't have powerful spirit energy. Meng Chao realized that even though he possessed the mindset of the perfect level basic gun technique and his previous life's memories of the monster's weakness, his body did not cooperate with his mind, and he would need a long time for his body to get used to it. There were slight problems with the accuracy and timing of the shot he fired earlier, and he did not manage to blow the super beast's head off. He knelt at the edge of their now destroyed apartment wall, squeezing out the last bit of his energy, although he was already trembling. He looked at the super beast below that was already spreading its golden powder and thought about how it was just like how Bai Jiaozhao still had a high chance of being corrupted. He wondered if fate could be like a running river, and they could not change it with human power. Desperation filled his eyes as he thought that he must change their fate. Meng Chao stood in a fighting stance, thinking that he was going to use the reckless bull technique to kill the super beast. But suddenly, a bright flash of golden light appeared, followed by a ray of powerful light. The light pierced through the super beast's head. The light seemed like it was a weapon moving at a very high speed, and as soon as it pierced the super beast's head, it electrocuted the entire monster. As the sparks of the current started to die down, someone stood on top of the weapon. The person stood on top of the thin weapon gracefully. The troops immediately recognized the person as a superhuman, and they rejoiced that a superhuman had arrived. On the other hand, Meng Chao leaned on the concrete that was left of their wall as he looked at the scene below. The system notified Meng Chao of the things he had achieved, delaying the fight, which enabled the superhuman to arrive before the super beast could devastate the area, playing a key role in the battle against the monsters, which gave him 1,978 contribution points, reducing the possibility of Bai Jiaozao's corruption by 2%, so the degree of chaos in Dragon City in the future had been reduced, which gave him 500 contribution points. He could also choose to awaken a basic skill Dragon Snake Force, or a support skill Harvesting Skill. Meng Chao looked tired as he looked at the system screens, and all he could mutter was the name Superhuman. An hour later, the blessed Heavenly Garden District seemed lively, and there was music playing in the area. People wearing protective gear dissected the monsters they killed earlier. One instructed that they should be quick because after a long time those imitation crabs would spoil and could not be eaten. Another one said that anyone who collects black water should be careful and not fiddle with it because it was very valuable. Meanwhile, Meng Chao was still sitting at the place he was earlier, and he thought that after injecting a few high-density nutritional fluids and eating up all the food in the house, he had finally recovered a little. He winced as he thought that he had exchanged too many things, and that his head was still aching. Meng Chao thought that since the ghost-eyed golden wing flame beetle appeared, it meant that the monsters were getting stronger and the war was about to go out of control, so he had to use every second he had to get stronger as fast as possible. He observed his body and figured that it seemed that the memory of the perfect level skill alone was not enough, and he had to keep using the skills in real battle so that his consciousness and his body could reach uniformity. Meng Chao was in a bind, as he was aware that without cultivation resources, he would be so hungry that he would turn into a shrimp because he remembered that he was gasping for breath after killing a flaming black beetle, so he questioned how he was supposed to fight like that. Suddenly, Meng Chao realized about the harvest when Bai Jiaozhao told him that the insects were being harvested outside and asked him if he didn't think that it smelled too bad. Meng Chao remembered that in his previous life, his mother was seriously injured by a super beast, and he failed his entrance exams. So in order to collect medical expenses for his mother and earn tuition for Bai Jiaozhao, his father took him into the industry, and in the monster war, he didn't know how many fierce beasts he harvested as he had been a harvester for 10 years. His eyes twinkled when he realized that being a harvester was pretty good money. He ordered the fire system to let him see the redemption list. The system notification screen showed the list of skills he could redeem and his current contribution points, which were 2,478. Meng Chao looked like a rabid dog when he saw that the basic harvesting skill cost was only 998 points, and he thought that since he had done it for 10 years and it was not very expensive activating and leveling it, he might as well do something he was familiar with. His eyes were twinkling as he ordered the fire system to redeem the basic harvesting skill. Meng Chao's eyes glowed as the harvesting method for different monsters was transferred into his brain by the system. After he got the basic harvesting skill, Meng Chao ordered the fire system to raise him to the specialist level, and the system did as he ordered. As Meng Chao got bombarded with information being injected into his mind, he realized that the basic harvesting skill specialist level and the basic gun technique perfect level formed something akin to a link, so he did choose the right one. His face was flushed with excitement as he thought that most of the monsters in his memories had not yet evolved, and he wondered if it meant that when they appeared, he would be the one who understood them the most in Dragon City. As Meng Chao was laughing maniacally while thinking about the possibilities, he was unaware that Bai Jiatsao was observing him, and she was wondering if Meng Chao had any bad intentions as she saw him making such an obscene smile. Their father told Bai Jiatsao and Meng Chao to go to bed earlier because he was going to the battlefield in the north as they waited for harvesters there, but Meng Chao told him that he came with him. Meng Chao told his father that with his current state, he might not be able to get the results he wanted during his national college examination, so instead of getting a job at random, he said that he might as well become a harvester and test his luck. As his father gave it some thought, he realized that Meng Chao's marksmanship was indeed good, but his body was too weak, so in all likelihood, he wouldn't be admitted to college, and although harvesting was dangerous, it was indeed an ordinary profession with the highest probability of awakening supernatural power. He agreed to bring Meng Chao so he could experience harvesting. Bai Jiatsao looked worried as she asked Meng Chao if he really went to become a harvester, and that made Meng Chao think that in the end, the love between siblings ran deep enough that even the Dark Witch was a little worried when she heard that her big brother wanted to do such a dangerous job. With a flustered face, Bai Jiatsao was trying to remind Meng Chao about something if ever he ran into tasty monsters like the flaming black beetles again. Bai Jiatsao reminded Meng Chao to bring some home. Meng Chao slammed the gun on the floor in disappointment, and he thought that it was his fault, as he shouldn't have held such high hopes for the Dark Witch. A few moments later, a truck traveled in terrain that was filled with vine-like creatures. It was a truck for resource recovery, and while it continued to traverse the monster-filled terrain, the fire system explained that although monsters were hateful, their corpses were the only strategic resource to sustain the development of Dragon City. The system said that it would be cool if people followed the army's indiscriminate bombardment and crushed all monsters into slag, but a lot of guns and ammunition and the precious lives of soldiers would not be reaped. As a result, within 3 or 5 years, Dragon City would run out of resources, starve to death, and die of trapping, but the superhuman could kill thousands of monsters with cold weapons, so the corpses were preserved intact and many resources could be recovered. Meng Chao rode in one of the trucks for resource recovery, and he was thinking that it was no wonder that in those years, the army was only an aid against monsters. They passed by a huge monster corpse, and Meng Chao thought that the key depended on the superhuman. Meng Chao's father told him that the job of being a soldier was too rough, but being a harvester was also not easy to do, as one needs to be bold and careful, so he should not be nervous later and just learn from him, but Meng Chao told him that he was not nervous. Meng Chao's father did not believe that he was not nervous because a real battlefield was completely different from the fight they had in the district, as there were 1,000 to 10,000 monsters there, so corpses piled up like mountains and there were seas of blood. But Meng Chao insisted that he was really not nervous, so his father told him that he was his son, so he didn't have to be shy with him, so he should just admit that he was nervous. Meng Chao was about to insist that he seriously was not nervous, but the fire system told Meng Chao that the smell of advanced monsters could stimulate the central nervous system, and newcomers who have never been in battle were very likely to pee in their pants, so Meng Chao acted like he finally confessed to his father that he was nervous and that he peed his pants. Meng Chao's father felt proud that he admitted such a thing, so he taught him a secret. The first time one became a harvester, they needed to put on a diaper, and Meng Chao told him that it was midnight, so he wondered how the heck they were supposed to get diapers. Meng Chao's father proudly showed him a stack of diapers, and he told him that when they got to the place later, he should just go to a corner and put them on, and he would keep a lookout for him so that he wouldn't embarrass himself. Meng Chao felt uncomfortable, so he told his father that he was suddenly filled with confidence toward his national college exam, so he didn't want to be a harvester anymore, and he requested for him to let him go home, but his father grinned and told him that that could not be done. They started to get off the truck, and Meng Chao's father told him that their big brother Shin was the leader of the company, so Shin would be the one who decided whether he could become a harvester or not. His father was about to tell him to be smart later, but he corrected his words and told him to be good later, and Meng Chao responded that he got it. A few moments later, Shinrongfa, the general manager of the prosperous resource recovery company, sat on a couch with multiple layers of protective suits and a fan in his hand, and he asked Lao Meng, Meng Chao's father, if it was his son that he brought. Lao Meng politely told Shinrongfa that the current matter was what he told him before. Shinrongfa grinned evilly as he realized that it was a sheep that came to him, and so he told Lao Meng that he heard that his son was injured, which was something he wouldn't be able to explain to his brother-in-law. Lao Meng grabbed Shinrongfa's hand as he pleaded for him to help them, and he told him that Meng Chao was mildly injured last year but was already fine, which was why he would teach him personally, and he guaranteed that in less than 2 years, he would definitely become a skilled harvester. Meng Chao was surprised when he saw that Lao Meng was secretly handing over a card from the Golden Dragon Trade Mall to Shinrongfa, and he knew that it was at least $10,000 per card, so he questioned how Lao Meng had so much money and wondered if he should put a gunny bag over Shinrongfa's head to snatch the card back. Meanwhile, Shinrongfa looked pleased as he waved the card, and he told Lao Meng that since his harvesting team was only attached to the company, he could bring whoever he wanted as his disciple as it would have nothing to do with the company, but he said that he just had one condition: they should not cause trouble. Shinrongfa told Lao Meng that he doesn't care if he causes him trouble, but it would be bad if he makes his brother-in-law vexed. Lao Meng told Shinrongfa that he got it so they wouldn't cause him or Mr. Hu, his brother-in-law, any trouble. Lao Meng suggested to Meng Chao that he thank Shinrongfa, and Meng Chao bowed politely as he thanked Shinrongfa. Shinrongfa waved them off as he told them that it was whatever, and he said that it should be enough with the chit-chat, so they should hurry up and get to work. As the two of them bowed their heads, Shinrongfa was wondering how Lao Meng could have so much money, and he thought that it seemed that he still had a lot of room to squeeze. Meanwhile, Meng Chao glared at Shinrongfa, and he wondered why he had the feeling that Shinrongfa was worse than Zhuhaoran. Lao Meng quickly turned to look at Meng Chao and told him that he should not offend Shinrongfa. That was when Meng Chao realized that Shinrongfa could have made Lao Meng's life really miserable in his previous life. As the two of them walked to work, Meng Chao told Lao Meng that he had been a harvester for more than 10 years, and everyone acknowledged him as their leader. He asked him why he insisted on working for Prosperous when he could set up his own company, but Lao Meng told him that it wasn't that easy to start a company because not only did they not have the startup capital, but they also didn't have the contacts to provide the Monster Corp's source. Lao Meng told Meng Chao to just endure it for 2 more years because once he became familiar with the trade and by Jiaocao entered college, they could talk about it again, as he wouldn't make him suffer all of his life. Meng Chao asked Lao Meng if he ever thought about the possibility of the number of monsters increasing again, and Lao Meng asked him what he meant. Meng Chao told Lao Meng that their short-term biology teacher mentioned that once all the monsters completed their evolution, they would appear in front of them in large numbers, which would be even more violent than the current ones. Meng Chao reminded Lao Meng that their district just managed to fight off the super beast, so it was a threat but also a fortuitous event. That was why if they wanted to build up their family fortune, they must seize that chance. However, Lao Meng told Meng Chao that they should work first so he could teach him how to harvest monsters, and they would talk about it later. Meng Chao looked determined as he thought that since he had come back from a nightmare, there was no reason to rely on others, and he wanted to build his own power so that he could take his fate into his own hands. As they arrived at the workplace, Lao Meng asked Meng Chao if the diapers were carefully padded, and that rendered Meng Chao speechless. Lao Meng grabbed a yellow-tailed giant scorpion and told Meng Chao that on that day, they harvested all crustaceans, so they would mainly harvest that monster. Meng Chao immediately got the attention of the guys on Lao Meng's team. One of them confirmed with him that he had never seen so many monsters before and asked him if it was exciting. Another one told him that it was fine to come and touch the monster as there were plenty of them there, so there was no way they would let him get hurt. Another one told him to look at the pincher that was still moving, and he laughed as he asked Meng Chao if he scared him. Meng Chao thanked his uncles, but he looked disheartened. Suddenly, Lao Meng told Meng Chao that the relatively complete yellow-tailed scorpion he was leaning on would be used to teach him, and they would do it slowly, so he should watch it carefully. Lao Meng used his tools to pry open the yellow-tailed scorpion's pincers, and as he pulled its meat out, he said that its 2 front limbs were full of fine meat. In one swift motion, Lao Meng sliced the body of the yellow-tailed scorpion open, and he said that the hard shell could be used directly as armor or refined into an alloy, while the sticky liquid in its body could be used as fertilizer for farms or to rear gigantified earthworms. He performed an extraction on its poison needle, saying that the yellow-tailed scorpion's venom could be refined into medicine and activate the superpower in the depths of genes. He told Meng Chao that poison needles were extremely hard, making them the best sniper bullets, naturally with corrosion and virulent effects. But as he handed his toolbox to Meng Chao, he told him that he should not be afraid because it was not too valuable, so he should just do it, and if it got damaged, they could rectify his mistakes. Meng Chao told him that he would try. Meng Chao started preparing the tools to harvest the yellow-tailed scorpion. He meticulously cut its body at a 25-degree angle. Meng Chao carefully removed its central nervous cord, and the fire system instructed that after perfectly separating it, he should put it in a nerve cell activation solution with a density of 37% to keep it fresh. The system informed him that the arc of the number 34 butterfly blade was just right and could perfectly peel off the flesh and carapace, which Meng Chao followed. Meng Chao continued to follow the system's instructions as it told him that the vacuum containers made it easy to collect and store the scorpion meat intact. Finally, the system told Meng Chao that the valuable mucus was aspirated using a vacuum aspirator. The insides of the yellow-tailed scorpion were perfectly removed, only leaving its hard shell, and Meng Chao let out a sigh of relief as he wiped his forehead. While Meng Chao said that it had been a long time since he practiced, so he was still a little rusty, the system notification congratulated Meng Chao for completing his first standard gathering of materials, informing him that his contribution points had increased by 3, while his specialist-level basic harvesting skill had increased by 1.1%. Meanwhile, Lao Meng and his team were frozen in place while they looked at Meng Chao with their eyes wide open, as they were extremely surprised, and it made Meng Chao curse in his mind, as that was when he realized that he had dissected the scorpion a little too quickly and vigorously. Meng Chao told Lao Meng and his team that since things progressed to that point, he has a secret that he must tell them. Lao Meng and his team looked at Meng Chao attentively as they got curious about what Meng Chao was about to say. Meng Chao said that in truth, since he was young, he had the dream of becoming an ace harvester, so whenever Lao Meng went to work, he practiced hard in secret, and when he was injured last year, he knew that the chances of him getting into university were 0. With great enthusiasm, Meng Chao said that he became even more determined to become a harvester, so he descended into a frenzy and practiced 10 times harder than before. He said that he was also influenced by his surroundings and learned from the family, so he had been able to make a difference, and that was what they could see. Lao Meng's men were amused, saying that it was no wonder that key high schools like 9th Middle School were different, and another one told Lao Meng that he was so lucky because, with such a great successor, he could enjoy his life in the future. Lao Meng was touched when he heard that Meng Chao had wanted to be a harvester since he was young, and he wondered why he had never heard him mention that before. Meng Chao said that he did not mention it because he just found it embarrassing to admit that he idolized his father as it was cheesy, and Lao Meng called him a silly boy because even if he did not say it, he was still able to tell that he idolized him. Meng Chao and Lao Meng bumped their fists, and Meng Chao thought that it could be considered a foolish pass. On the other hand, Lao Meng was thinking that Meng Chao was so mature and skilled, but it was a pity that he, as his father, was useless and couldn't help him become a superhuman, so he could only let him follow him at the bottom of the Reaper Circle. Suddenly, Meng Chao asked Lao Meng if they should continue. Meng Chao said that after going through the real deal earlier, he found that it did connect to the theories he learned in class, so he thought he found the correct feeling in harvesting, and after hearing that, Lao Meng agreed to continue. Meng Chao continued to harvest, and he opened up another yellow-tailed scorpion. As he performed the steps again, he thought that it was right, and it was such a wonderful feeling. He was so focused while he thought that the feeling of harvesting from the previous life was back, but then, as he held the scalpel, he suddenly stopped. Meng Chao looked like he found something, and he thought that it was an unexpected surprise. The system showed Meng Chao the names of the parts of the yellow-tailed scorpion along with their worth, but there was a mysterious part that the system did not show, neither the name nor the worth. Meng Chao identified it as a golden spirit, and Lao Meng was surprised that he could even identify golden spirits. Meng Chao quickly told Lao Meng that their biology teacher taught it just recently. He put the scalpel down and instructed the team to prepare number 9, number 14, and number 20 hilts, along with number 5, number 8, and number 11 knives, as well as armor-shattering hammers and bone exploration needles. He also asked the team to prepare some cooling and stabilizing liquid with a density of 35% and add 1% of mithril to it because they might be able to get high-grade materials from golden spirits, so they needed to properly preserve it. But one of Lao Meng's men told Meng Chao that they should just leave it because they would have their superintendent Gu handle it later on. Meng Chao realized that he forgot that the internal structure of the golden spirit was complicated, and they were only one line behind the super beast, so they were handled by Supervisor Gu or another superhuman. But as he touched the golden spirit, he got worried by its state. Meng Chao smelled its liquids, and he said that its nerve cord and neurosphere had been exposed to air for too long, so if they waited any longer, its flesh would start changing, so the spirit energy in it would run rampant, and it would turn into an untamed bomb that would blow up at any moment. Lao Meng agreed that its smell was a bit off, but one of his men said that material corruption had nothing to do with them, but in the case of harvesting mistakes, Mr. Hu would blame them, and their lives would be miserable. Meng Chao got worried as he knew that Lao Meng was affiliated with Prosperous, and his income basically depends on performance, so the golden spirit with such a high value must not be let go. Meng Chao told Lao Meng's men that it was fine, so they should rest for a while. He started to operate on the monster and requested that Lao Meng help him out because his biology teacher had taught him the way to dissect golden spirits. But another man grabbed his arm and told him to stop it. Suddenly, another hand swooped in. It was Lao Meng's hand, and he grabbed the hand that was holding Meng Chao back as he declared that the golden spirit was his. He said that if anything happened, he would take the blame. The man got annoyed, and he said that Lao Meng was a man who was accompanying a child to fool around, so he quit. Lao Meng turned to tell his other men that if they wanted to go, they should go too, as there would be no need for them to be dragged by him and Meng Chao. But one of the men slapped Lao Meng as he questioned him about how he could say that when Meng Chao was like their son, they could not let him take the blame on his own. Another one tapped Lao Meng with his elbow from behind and said that they might be uneducated, but they could still handle one golden spirit. Another one put their hand on Lao Meng, saying that he should not even think about taking all of the profit from the golden spirit because if there was money, they had to earn it together, and if something happened, they had to bear it together. Meng Chao was moved by what everyone just told Lao Meng. He looked determined, and he thought that he had to work harder. With swift and precise motion, Meng Chao started to cut the muscle around the golden spirit. He pried it open and dug his hand in to grab the golden spirit. As soon as Meng Chao extracted the golden spirit, he instructed Lao Meng to use a mithril-based cooling and stabilizing solution. The eyes of Lao Meng's men were wide in surprise when they saw that it was an etherealized nerve ball and that it was so fresh, at least 80% active, and in perfect condition, so they said that it could not be just because Meng Chao was in a key high school that his skills were so good, which made them wonder if it was because of a girl. As Meng Chao took a closer look into the nerve ball, he noticed something, while on the other hand, Lao Meng warned him to be careful because freshly removed etherealized neurospheres were very active, so they could not withstand heavy tremors. Meng Chao smiled evilly as he thought that there seemed to be a more valuable treasure in the ball, but Lao Meng noticed his expression and was alarmed. Meanwhile, one of Lao Meng's men remembered that Meng Chao was injured last year, and his injury was mainly at the spine, and another one of his men realized that an etherealized neurosphere from a golden spirit would be the best medicine for him. Suddenly, Lao Meng placed his hand on the etherealized nerve ball's container as he told Meng Chao not to even think about it because it was the spoils of war belonging to the person who risked their life to kill the monster, and they were just harvesting the monster on their behalf, which surprised Meng Chao, but he seemed to be trying to explain something. But Lao Meng's gaze at Meng Chao was so firm as he told him that he knew that he wanted to get into college, just how hard it hit him when he got injured last year, and at the end of the day, he was useless. But no matter how poor or desperate they got, they could not take someone else's things. Meng Chao looked so frustrated as he could not get a word in, and he thought that Lao Meng was thinking too much, so he really misunderstood him. Meng Chao just walked away as he told Lao Meng to have enough with it, and he said that he would head back to the camp to have a quiet time. He was thinking that he would go back to the camp and find a way to persuade Lao Meng to set up his own business. A few moments later, as he walked around, Meng Chao heard a sound and recognized it as the sound of a seven-eyed wolf spider. Meng Chao quickly ran, and he thought that he must catch up because it might be his first bucket of money. Suddenly, Meng Chao stopped running. A woman was approaching a monster while an old man was watching her from behind, and Meng Chao, who hid behind the ruins, saw what was happening, and he was concerned because someone else got ahead of him. The old man told the woman, whose name was Schwescher, that she had been practicing well recently and that the seven-eyed wolf spider was perfect for her to practice with. The old man was Schwescher's grandpa, and she agreed with him. Schwescher placed her bag on the ground, and it made a huge thud. The bag was her toolbox, and as she opened it, she told her grandpa that she would finish the task in 8 minutes. As Schwescher was about to make an incision, Meng Chao observed closely as he wondered what she was doing, and he came to the conclusion that they don't know about the seven-eyed dragon wolf spider. Someone yelled for them to stop, and it caught both Schwescher and her grandpa's attention. The one who yelled was Meng Chao, and he immediately introduced himself to Schwescher's grandpa, saying that his family was planning to open a resource recycling company, and he immediately apologized for bothering them. Schwescher's grandpa was surprised that Meng Chao actually knows the manners of the harvesters, but he asked him why he stopped Schwescher from harvesting the seven-eyed wolf spider when he knew that it was taboo to disturb the harvesters. Meng Chao told Schwescher's grandpa the truth. The monster in front of them was a seven-eyed dragon wolf spider, which was currently evolving and was stuck between Grade 1 and Grade 2. He explained that currently, its internal structure was very fragile, and the newly born poison sac was as thin as a cicada's wings, which would render all the materials useless if the sac got broken, and if they followed Schwescher's method from earlier, the harvest would definitely fail. Schwescher saw Meng Chao's armband, which indicated that he was an intern, and she said that he turned out to be a stupid harvester, so it was no wonder that he didn't even recognize the white-haired ghostly hands. Schwescher's grandpa, Ningxinhua, asked Meng Chao how he could be sure that the monster was evolving when he hadn't even looked at it when he first arrived there. Meng Chao told Ningxinhua that he has been a self-taught harvester for decades, and he said that seven-eyed wolf spiders might be from the same race as seven-eyed dragon wolf spiders, but they share a difference in grade, so there was a slight difference in their shrieks before they died, which was not hard to differentiate. When he heard Meng Chao say that it was not hard, Ningxinhua's face looked grim, even though he forced a smile. Schwescher told Meng Chao to stop trying to intimidate them, and she doubted him because Ningxinhua did not manage to hear it yet he, and in turn, managed to do so. But Meng Chao was insistent as he told Ningxinhua that everything he said was true. He said that although the monster still retained the outside appearance of a seven-eyed wolf spider, many of its organs had already started mutating, and he told him that he could see for himself by breaking open the shell of the super beast. Ningxinhua gave it some thought, and he decided that it was better to be safe than sorry. He told Schwescher to let him do it. Schwescher immediately agreed with Ningxinhua, but in her mind, she was calling Meng Chao a bastard and accusing him of being there to get her in trouble. Meanwhile, Ningxinhua grabbed 2 scalpels from Schwescher's tools, and he told Meng Chao to look carefully if he wanted to learn some tricks. Meng Chao looked excited, and he told Ningxinhua that he was ready, so he should go ahead. Ningxinhua wielded the scalpel on each of his hands, and with a swift motion, he opened the shell of the super beast. But Ningxinhua's hands were trembling after he performed those movements. Meng Chao noticed it, and he immediately figured that Ningxinhua was injured, and he thought that it was no wonder that he did not want to do the operation himself. He smirked as he thought that, looking at the state of Ningxinhua, his first bucket of money was settled. Meng Chao approached Schwescher, and he asked her if she had 300,000 cash in her account, which surprised Schwescher. She asked him why he was asking. Meng Chao said that looking at Ningxinhua, he realized that he had problems with his nerves, so an assistant was definitely needed to complete the operation, otherwise, the harvested material would only be worth 300,000. Meng Chao said that, coupled with his experience, the combination of 2 swords could at least strip out the most valuable poison sac perfectly, and counting the other materials, the value of the project had increased by at least more than 1 million. He was twinkling as he told Schwescher that since it was fate that they got to know each other, he could offer them a discount and just take 300,000 and consider it as making his contribution to society. Schwescher was baffled by what Meng Chao just said, and she was speechless. Schwescher told Meng Chao that even if Ningxinhua was injured, he was still the white-haired ghostly hands, and even if he needed an assistant, she would be there, so there was no need for him, a stinky intern, to help. Schwescher was about to berate Meng Chao more, but Ningxinhua told her to shut up, and she was taken aback. Ningxinhua looked distressed as he told Schwescher to come and see for herself. He saw the newly born poison sac, and he said that what Meng Chao said was true. Schwescher looked horrified when she saw that the organs were wrong, and she realized that it was not a seven-eyed wolf spider. Ningxinhua said that it was indeed not a seven-eyed wolf spider but the much rarer seven-eyed dragon wolf tiger, and it was evolving to boot, which made him think that he did not expect that he, the white-haired ghostly hand, was about to be defeated by a low-grade super beast that hasn't reached the second level. While Shueisha and Ningxinhua stared intently at the monster, Meng Chao appeared behind them to spectate. While Ningxinhua was still taken aback, Shueisha noticed Meng Chao and glared at him, which made Meng Chao zip his mouth. Shueisha asked Meng Chao to tell her what he wanted, and Meng Chao said that the seven-eyed dragon wolf spider was very common as it did not go through any strange and unusual super evolution. Both Shueisha and Ningxinhua were hit hard when Meng Chao said that it was very common. Shueisha asked Meng Chao if he could really help Ningxinhua complete the harvest for 300,000, but Ningxinhua immediately raised the price to 500,000. Ningxinhua told Meng Chao that if he could really help him, even if he could not handle the harvest perfectly, as long as it was acceptable and the poison sac retained 70% of its poison, he would immediately transfer 500,000 to him. Meng Chao humbly told Ningxinhua that he had not become a superhuman yet, so his strength and senses were just average, which was why he could only serve as his assistant. While on the back of his mind, Meng Chao sighed with relief because he was glad that he reacted quickly, as he almost said that he could only guide Ningxinhua to finish the job. Ningxinhua immediately told Meng Chao that he would be the first assistant while Shueisha would be the second assistant and said that they should get started. Shueisha and Meng Chao immediately put on their protective gear as soon as they agreed, while Ningxinhua was preparing to begin the surgery. Ningxinhua was about to ask for the number 3 tool, but Meng Chao handed him the number 4 hilt with the number 7 rhombus-shaped blade. Meng Chao told Ningxinhua that he knew that he intended to use a number 3 hilt with a number 12 pincer-shaped blade to separate the book long first, but he explained that they were working on an evolving monster and there were a lot of leaf-shaped wrinkles on its sac-shaped book long, so he was afraid that if they do that method, they might damage its appearance. Meng Chao suggested that they start from the vessel located behind the book long, separate the veins in reverse, and clear up its surroundings before they deal with the book long itself because those veins were much sturdier than they were previously, so they wouldn't snap easily, and he asked Ningxinhua what he thought about his suggestion. Ningxinhua was taken aback, but he calmed down and said that it was what he was thinking as well. The system notified Meng Chao that elite citizen Ningxinhua's knowledge regarding the semi-mature seven-eyed dragon wolf spider had improved due to his guidance, so he earned 15 contribution points, which amazed Meng Chao, and he called Ningxinhua an elite monster. A few moments later, they were already able to harvest a lot of the monster's organs. As Ningxinhua continued with the operation, he thought that it was too comfortable to harvest with Meng Chao as an assistant, so he thought he should teach him a little bit of the 7 dissection methods. Ningxinhua asked Meng Chao what sort of method he would use to remove the poison sac, if it was him. Meng Chao made hand gestures as he told Ningxinhua that he would do it from below, along the central apophysis, and he would use the 7 dissection methods performed in reverse, the 3 consecutive diagonal plucks. Ningxinhua was surprised again, and he thought that Meng Chao was a mysterious boy who upgraded the 7 dissection methods, and with that technique, the harvesting time could be reduced by at least 5%, so he wondered who he was, who his teacher was, and what kind of power and research team was behind him. Meanwhile, Meng Chao was marveling at the system notification that informed him that Ningxinhua's understanding of the 4th dissection method of the 7 dissection methods performed in reverse had increased due to his guidance, so he received 55 contribution points, which made Meng Chao think that Ningxinhua's learning ability was great because he just made a few random motions, but Ningxinhua understood. Ningxinhua was hesitant when he brought up Meng Chao's parents' reaction regarding him teaching the secret techniques like that, and Meng Chao thought that since he was an elite monster, he could not use self-taught as an excuse. Meng Chao apologized to Ningxinhua as he admitted that he was joking with him earlier because he had his own troubles, so he could not tell him who his master was. But he told them that before his teacher let him out, he told him that the skills needed to be exchanged for the rise of Dragon City, so it was absolutely impossible to hide. Shueisha asked Meng Chao why he asked for 300,000 if that was the case. Meng Chao told Shueisha that they just met, so he was afraid that she had misunderstood him, and he explained that the 300,000 was his startup capital with which he could form his team and achieve his goal of contributing to Dragon City better. Meng Chao's eyes were filled with desire as he said that the 300,000 was not for his personal enjoyment as it was the first spark for the civilization of the earth to flourish in the other world. Ningxinhua was surprised when he saw Meng Chao's eyes shining while he was speaking, and he thought that Meng Chao really wanted to make a contribution to Dragon City, which was rare to see in such a young man to have that kind of heart. On the other hand, Schwescher was bashful, as she thought that she did not expect Meng Chao to have such aspirations, but she still questioned him, and she admitted to herself that she was too short-sighted. Meng Chao told them that they should not continue talking and that he would support the operating area for the last poison sac, so they should separate the nerve cord, while in the back of his mind, he was thinking that he did not know if Lao Meng had finished harvesting or not, so he had to go back soon. Ning Xinhua immediately agreed with Meng Chao. With swift movements, the nerve cords were cut off. Ning Xinhua was able to take out the poison sac and enclosed it in a container. Ning Xinhua asked Schwescher how much money they had in their account, and she replied that it was about 800,000, and Ning Xinhua immediately told her to send it all to Meng Chao, which surprised Schwescher. Meng Chao was extremely surprised, and he told Ning Xinhua that it was too much because they agreed on 500,000. Ning Xinhua told Meng Chao that if they have to talk about it, the technique earlier was worth more than a few 100,000, but because of having to treat his injuries, he was a little short on money lately, so he should keep that money first. He said that once he examined the materials, he would talk to him again, and Meng Chao responded that he would respectfully accept his request if that was the case, and revealed that, in fact, he had some research on the other 6 dissection methods. Of the 7 dissection methods performed in reverse as well, but he thought that he would need another year and a half before he could fully recover from his wounds, so he asked if they should exchange their skills in the future. Ning Xinhua was astonished that Meng Chao knew about his injuries. Meng Chao explained to him that, from the condition of his hands, he thought that the venom of the purple crown Halley's viper had infected the ulnar nerve, radial nerve, and median nerve in his hands, and it even affected some of the optic nerves. Schwescher was emotional as she asked Meng Chao how he could say that Ning Xinhua would recover in a year and a half when he could tell that Ning Xinhua was injured and it was clearly an illness with no treatment. Meng Chao was puzzled when he heard that it was a terminal illness.